Hey guys, welcome to episode number 39 of Ask DeFranco's Gym. I know it's been forever since I've done an Ask DeFranco's Gym episode. Ever since I started my podcast, the Industrial Strength Show, that has really become my new platform for answering questions. But I got a question today that pertained to my podcast, so I figured I would bring back the good old Ask DeFranco's Gym segment on YouTube and answer the question. So here we go. Hey Joe, first I'd like to say how much I enjoy listening to your podcast each and every week. The fact that you're willing to share such valuable information for free with your audience speaks volumes to the type of individual you are. So for that, I can't thank you enough. You're welcome. Now on to my question. I was listening to episode number 48 of your podcast, and everything you said about static stretching really hit home with me. I really liked the end of the podcast when you spoke about being realistic and finding your big 3 stretches that will give you the best bang for your buck and just focus on them every day, as opposed to trying to stretch every muscle in your body and then end up doing nothing because you don't have time to stretch everything. As a guy who lacks full body flexibility because I sit behind a computer 50 to 60 hours a week, damn, that's a lot. How do I find my big 3 stretches when everything needs work? To make matters worse, I have to train on my lunch break each day. It's literally the only time I can train. It's that or nothing. So I only have about 40 total minutes to train. I hate to put you on the spot like this, but I guess my question to you is, if you had to recommend only one go-to upper body stretch and one go-to lower body stretch to the prototypical desk jockey with a very limited time to warm up and train, what would those 2 stretches be? Can't thank you enough for all you do. Matt, that is a great question. And I just want to preface this by saying, for those of you who didn't listen to my most recent episode of Ask DeFranco's Gym, most recent episode of the Industrial Strength Show podcast, you can check that out on iTunes, Stitcher, or on my website, DeFranco'straining.com, and click on the podcast section. It is episode number 48, where I talked about my views on static stretching. I'm not going to go over the whole thing right now, but let's just say I do feel like static stretching has its place in an athlete's warm-up, in everybody's warm-up, and in everybody's everyday life. So, you do need to do more than just static stretching. I know there's mobility work and what's referred to as SMR, self-myofascial release, in our industry, using foam rollers and lacrosse balls and tennis balls and the stick, things of that nature. There's other things out there. I'm not saying static stretching is the be-all, end-all, but I do feel like it's gotten a bad rap, and it could help people like you, Matt, out a lot. So if you're someone who's sitting behind a desk all day and you're going to ask, what's the top 2 static stretches you can incorporate into your program, we need to look at the position you're in all day, and we want to get in the opposite position with 2 stretches in this case. So for the upper body, first thing that comes to my mind, it's got to be the pecs, because you're kind of hunched over, you're typing, you're on your phone, you're on that computer. So we need to get this rounded, internally rotated posture. We want to open that up and do some kind of pec stretch. And I will show you my personal favorite pec stretch. There's many of them. I'm going to show you the one that I go to the most, one of my favorites that I've had great success with, alleviating shoulder pain and also helping out with posture. And then for the lower body, look at this position I'm in. Hips flexed, crunched over, sitting in your desk. We need to open that up, and we want to stretch out the hip flexors, get out of flexion, and do some sort of extension. So I will show you my favorite, or one of my favorite, hip flexor stretches as well. So I'm going to give you my big two. Favorite pec stretch, one of my favorite hip flexor stretches. I'm just going to change the camera angle for you and set up, save a little bit of time, change the angle real quick, and I'll show those two stretches to you. Okay guys, what I've done is I have two 5-pound plates, and we are going to do a weighted pec stretch on the bench. And I'll demonstrate for you in a second. What I want you to look for though is when I lay down on the bench, I'm going to extend my arms out at about 45 degrees and let the weight of the plates just kind of pull my arms down. Now you're going to set position with one big breath. If anybody listened to my podcast, episode number 48, you know that I prefer holding stretches for breaths and not a specific amount of time. And it is crucial to get into the proper position on that first breath. So once I get into position, I'm going to inhale, take a huge breath in, bring all my air in, and then I am going to exhale and drive my rib cage down and flatten my low back on the bench. You don't want your ribs all flared up and your back arched while you're stretching your pecs. You want to bring ribs down, flatten the low back out. That increases the stretch on your pecs like tenfold. It's a totally different ball game. So watch the position I get in. I'll hold it for a couple seconds for you so you can see, but really pay attention to that first breath. You're gonna hold that stretch for about 10 deep, slow breaths, and then slowly drop the weights on the floor and come out of the stretch. All right, the bench is already set up, so we're gonna go into the classic quad hip flexor stretch. We're gonna set our bodies up in front of the bench. I'll demonstrate my left leg. You're gonna put your left foot on the bench. I like to try to get my knee as close to the bench as possible, then set the low back. Most people are in extension and arched all the time, so I like to shift my body weight forward and then set my low back by doing the opposite and almost trying to round my low back like a cat stretching or tucking your tail under. Watch my low back go from arch to neutral. I get to neutral by thinking about rounding, and then I shift my hips back, huge stretch, and then I'm gonna take big deep breaths. Inhale and exhale. Hold this stretch for 5 to 10 big, deep, slow breaths. Obviously do each leg. If you have a knee issue, definitely put a mat, piece of foam, a rolled up t-shirt, something under your knee to make it a little more comfortable. But those are my two simple, best bang for your buck stretches for people who sit behind a desk all day. Give them a shot, and also make sure you're not sitting for more than an hour at a time when you're at work. Every half hour to 45 minutes, try to get up, walk around for a couple seconds so you're not stuck in that seated position for longer than an hour at a time. That will help as well. So that's all I got for today. Make sure you guys check out new episodes of the Industrial Strength Show every Thursday on iTunes, Stitcher, and my website, DeFranco'straining.com, in the podcast section. Thanks for listening.